I knew it. I shouldn't have been invited here tonight. You should have included me out, because if I do what I came to do, I'll spoil a few perfectly respectable grudges that have been kept polished and displayed like family heirlooms. And I'm out of place, because I arrived with ledgers in my hands. Not theology texts, ledgers. I have come as a clumsy accountant of the soul to show you a tax you've been paying so long you think it's part of your nature. It is not. Resentment is not a mood. It is an unseen tax that gets deducted before you ever touch your wages of joy, your savings of sleep, your capital of prayer. You don't get a bill in the mail. There's no stern letterhead from the Bureau of Grievance. The deductions simply appear stealthy as a keen pickpocket. A bit less peace in the afternoon meeting, a thinner smile at supper, a heavier head on the pillow that refuses rest, and we call it personality, temperament, justice. We say, of course I'm upset. Did you hear what they did? Oh, I've said it myself. In my better costume, I called it righteous indignation, but God knows a false mustache when he sees one. Let me give you the hook so you know the tune we'll be playing before the night is through. Every grievance is interest you pay to humanhood, and the rate compounds when you're not looking. It compounds silently each time you replay the scene, polish the indictment, rehearse the defense you never deliver. Who signs those checks? Not God. Judge not, that ye be not judged, said the Master, and we have been judging long enough to know the flavor of our own sentence. Agree with thine adversary quickly, not because the adversary is right, but because the adversary isn't where your life is. Your life is hid with Christ in God. Do you think it is the God self of you that can be insulted? Do you think spirit loses one breath because a man spoke sharply at the office? Do you believe the infinite sits up at 2 a.m. to compose a clever rebuttal? No. Only the human sense of self, fragile, heroic, busy about its reputation, pays these charges. And oh, how it pays. You will find I am not here to scold you into better manners. I have no interest in polishing the armor of a wounded self. I am interested in the audit. Item by item, we will discover what resentment steals until the pattern is undeniable even to the thriftiest ego. Peace leaves the room before you do first deduction. Sleep turns into a courtroom, and you, my dear, become the prosecutor second. Joy drains from the face, and you don't even notice the invoice third. Prayer tilts from communion to negotiation fourth. Relationships harden into emotional interchange and bargaining fifth. The world shrinks until it is only you and the story sixth. And then the final tax, your capacity to bless, goes missing while you loudly call it self-protection. Father, forgive them, said our teacher, for they know not what they do. If you can say that and mean it, the tax collector stands at an empty till. Before we walk that ledger, accept this small confession from a fellow debtor. I, too, have hugged my grievances as if they warmed me, and woke to find they had quietly pawned my peace for another hour of self-importance. I, too, have preached and then gone home to negotiate with God about why he should fix the people I cannot love. But the Christ within will not be a party to our bookkeeping. He says, take no thought for your life, and that includes the account you keep of who owes you what. Let's twist that Bible upside down and read its instruction as it reads us. Forgive 70 times 7 is not arithmetic. It is the end of arithmetic. When the counting stops, the tax stops. So here we are, awkward and honest, with the envelope open on the kitchen table of consciousness. No drama, no pity, just an audit. Not someday, tonight. We will not be outwardly heated about it. We will be outwardly cold-blooded and inwardly overheated with love for God and man, because love is the only atmosphere in which this arithmetic dissolves. And if along the way you feel the human self squirm at the loss of its favorite grievance, smile kindly and let it squirm. We are not killing anyone. We are simply discontinuing payments we never owed. Now, if there is a check being written whose name is on the account, don't look to heaven for a signature that isn't there. Do you think the God self can be insulted? Do you think infinity can be slighted? Do you think spirit can be deprived of respect? No. Infinity does not need your defense, and spirit does not suffer a bruise when a man forgets his manners. Your life is hid with Christ in God, says the apostle. Hidden, secreted from the reach of human fingers and human verdicts. The only place a grievance can attach is on the surface of the mask, never on the face of the real. The offended self is not a spiritual fact. It is a human claim, a sense of selfhood apart from God, loud enough to write checks and poor enough to feel them. Let's say it plainly so we cannot forget it in the night. The one who resents is the one insisting, I am a separate personal self with a personal history to defend. It rehearses the scene, what they did, what I deserved, what any reasonable universe should have awarded me by now. It files motions in the inner court. It subpoenas old conversations as evidence. It stamps every document with a name that God never gave, mine. And I must ask, because questions strip pretenses more quickly than sermons, who taught you that the infinite needs an alibi? Who whispered that the Holy One has a thin skin? Who said the Christ within can be demeaned by a rumor? If you trace the voice to its source, you will not find it in the red letters. You will find it in humanhood, proud, injured, endlessly narrating its cause. Be still and know that I am God. Be still long enough and you will discover there is no place inside the I am that trembles at a snub. The trembling is always at the circumference where a costume is busy convincing the mirror it is a man. Our resentment is that costume's tailor stitch by stitch. It tightens the garment until we cannot breathe, and then we complain about the air. Outwardly, it looks like justice. Inwardly, it is only claustrophobia, life lived inside the little box of me and mine. And friends, it isn't wicked. It is simply false. The lie devours the liar. I die daily, said Paul, not as poetry, but as practice. Die to the costume, to the autobiography, to the small proprietor who keeps the safe locked and still calls himself poor. Consider how quickly dignity rises when you return to the God self. The insult comes, and there is a silence, not a sullen, punished silence, but the hush of the temple where no bargaining is permitted. In that hush you discover there is nothing to defend because there is no separate owner of your life. All mine are thine, and thine are mine, prayed the Master. If all is God's, then what precisely is left for a personal self to lose? We say we want freedom, then we cling to a persona that cannot live without its enemies. Look at the math. The more convinced you are of being a separate self, the more invoices arrive. The less you insist on that ownership, the less there is to bill. I will not flatter you with the promise of easier people. The world will go on auditioning for your condemnation, but if the God self has nothing to defend, then your capacity to let the audition pass without casting it in your consciousness becomes your liberation. The pen falls from your hand. The check remains unsigned. The tax collector knocks and finds no resident at that address. And now we are ready for the practical side of this bookkeeping. If resentment is a payment made by a private self, what is it buying? What are the line items it pretends to purchase, and what exactly does it cost? Let us open the ledger to the first deduction and see how peace leaves the room before we do. Open the ledger then, and do not be sentimental about the numbers. The first deduction is always peace, and it is deducted before a word leaves your mouth. Have you noticed how quickly the nervous system tightens when a grievance knocks? The jaw volunteers as a guard, the shoulders rise into armor, the breath becomes a miser. A room may be quiet, a chair may be comfortable, The clock may be gentle, and yet peace is unavailable, like a shop with the lights on and the door locked. Do you think the God self tightens? Do you think the I am forgets to breathe? My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. The Christ does not withdraw his peace. Humanhood misplaces it the instant it picks up its case. Watch the tax being paid in real time. You are washing dishes and suddenly you are in last Tuesday. You are reading a page and discover you have been trying the old trial again, calling new witnesses from the same tired cast. You rearrange the furniture of the past until your argument looks handsomer and theirs more foolish. You deliver the verdict. You bow to the court. You win, and nothing is healed. Not one atom of God's presence has increased because a private court declared you right. Do you think Spirit is impressed with our inner theatrics? Do you think the infinite takes notes on our cross-examinations? No. Only the costume claps for itself. Meanwhile, peace has left the room and taken the atmosphere with it, and we are surprised that prayer later in the evening sounds like talking into a pillow. Here is the paradox we prefer not to name. Resentment dresses up as strength, calls itself dignity, even whispers self-respect, and we salute. But inside it produces a limp, not a stride. It makes the spine rigid and the heart brittle. The more fiercely we grip the grievance, the more easily a stranger's tone can break us. Is that strength? The offended self puffs, struts, rehearses the speech it will finally deliver, and then a child's question or a cashier's delay reveals the truth. We are not strong, we are tense. Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might, says the apostle. That strength is supple, unoffendable, capable of listening without loading a weapon. Human strength is a clenched fist. Divine strength is an open hand that cannot be pried from its peace. Why is peace the first to go? Because peace is the only atmosphere in which spirit is audible. Be still and know that I am God. Not be sharp, not be exacting, not be victorious in debate, be still. When the inner room is agitated, guidance cannot be heard. When the lake is stormed by self-justification, the stars do not reflect. We do not lose answers, we lose the silence in which answers land. And then, of course, we must improvise, and humanhood improvises badly. We scheme, we plot timing, we calculate phrases to maximize effect, and the result is the same. More agitation, more cost, more installments paid to a creditor who does not exist in God. I will confess my own tuition in this. I have stood at a window, outwardly a teacher, inwardly a plaintiff, delivering imaginary eloquence so concentrated that 10 minutes later I could not remember why I had come to the window. Peace had stepped out quietly. The room did not change. I did. And when I turned to prayer, I discovered I had brought a negotiator to an altar. There was no communion, only strategy. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, Scripture says. But I was marching and muttering, and no salvation is seen by a man who will not stop performing. So let us say it in a way the human self cannot misunderstand. The price of a single cherished resentment is the immediate muffling of the Christ voice. The first whisper you forfeit is the very whisper that would have told you what to do and what to refrain from doing. And having lost that, we will find as night comes that the courtroom we built at noon does not close at dusk. It simply moves to the bedroom and turns the pillow into a dock. If peace is gone, the next thing to go is the ability to be led. We will come to that. For now, look around the room you are in. If peace is absent, no offender did that to you. A personal self wrote a small check and the bank honored it immediately. Cancel the draft. Return to the God self that cannot be ruffled, and you will find the door of the quiet shop unlocked after all. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace. whose mind is stayed on thee. Stay there, and the tax collector goes away empty-handed. Night comes, and instead of a bed, it is a bench. Instead of a pillow, it is a docket. Instead of rest, it is arraignment. Have you noticed the choreography? The jaw appoints itself bailiff. The breath becomes a stenographer, taking down every syllable of the day's offense. And you look at it honestly, you seat yourself behind the prosecutor's table with a stack of exhibits labeled never again, always, and how dare they. The clock has compassion. It tries to rock you. But resentment cannot sleep, and if resentment cannot sleep, it will not permit you to sleep. Do you think the God Self paces the cell of the ribs, rehearsing new indictments? Do you think infinity stays up, crafting a closing argument? No. Only the private self runs a night court. There is a moment, quiet and terrible, when the stomach turns into a witness who cannot tell the truth. It knows nothing of justice, only of acid. The heart files affidavits in the dark, and the spine stiffens as if a verdict will finally make the bed safe. Ask it straight. Is it worth your pillow? Is it worth tomorrow's clarity? Is it worth your body's health? Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest, says the Master. Do you believe him enough to retire the case? Or will you keep the red letters closed and read, instead, the gray script of humanhood for another hour? I have taken my turn as district attorney of the night. I have whispered triumphs to an invisible jury, only to find in the morning that I had sentenced no one but the body. And here is where I must twist our old habit upside down. The body seems to be the victim of the offender out there, but it is only paying the bill for unpaid forgiveness in here. Take no thought for the morrow, said Jesus, but we take thought for yesterday and interest for tomorrow and call it being prepared. Friends, that body in the bed, if you live inside it, defending it, agitating it, becomes a tomb. It is a tomb if you're living inside of it. It is only a body if you're outside, using it as an instrument of God. When you step outside into spirit and let the case drop, the instrument quiets. When you crawl inside with your briefcase, the tomb grows smaller by the minute. Socratic questions have a way of undressing pretense. So let's continue. Who exactly are you trying to convince at 2 a.m? The absent offender, an imagined audience, a God you suppose needs reminding? Who benefits when you lose the one commodity you cannot borrow back, rest? Is there any human victory priced high enough to pay for a fog-minded dawn and the frayed temper that follows? Be honest. Is it worth a child's puzzled look at breakfast? Is it worth the lost softness in your voice at work? Is it worth the prayer you cannot find because you traded communion for cross-examination? He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, sings the psalmist, and the Christ makes of the bed a meadow when the prosecutor resigns. Lie down does not mean lie awake and litigate. It means loosen the jaw, return the witness to silence, and let the judge of all the earth do right without your notes. The human self insists that a verdict will save you. The God self reveals that only surrender saves you. And here is the strange arithmetic of the Spirit. The very person you think you must correct by inner argument is least likely to be blessed by a man who greets them tomorrow starved of sleep. When sleep is taxed, vitality is taxed. And when vitality is taxed, your relationships begin paying the bill with you. The sigh at the door, the impatience in the meeting, the borrowed thunder in the voice that used to bless. We will open that ledger in its turn. For tonight, close the court. Withdraw the case. Whisper one red-letter prayer and mean it. Father, forgive them, not as poetry, but as practice. Then forgive the prosecutor who wears your name and turn not into the body as a fortress, but out of it into God as your life. Rest is the receipt, and now the morning tells on us. We come to the mirror, and before the toothbrush has a chance to be noble, the face reports the balance sheet. I have stood before congregations I love in thought, with a grief that is not personal but priestly. There is no joy in their faces. Not because life is impossible, not because God has resigned, but because the tax has been paid so faithfully that the features have learned to wear it without complaint. The corners of the mouth have become bookkeepers, the eyes a mailbox for overdue notices. No one sent you a bill, I know that, but the invoice is plainly stamped on the expression. Do you think the God self frowns? Do you think the I am can be knocked off balance and show it in the forehead? No. Only the private self prints its resentment on the skin and calls it realism. Hear me, for this is a stern diagnosis and a compassionate one. Joy is not entertainment, not a weekend privilege, not a reward for external agreement. Joy is spiritual evidence. It is the natural fragrance of inner freedom, the unforced proof that you are not living inside a costume with something to defend. These things have I spoken unto you, says the Master, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. Remain, not flash. Full, not occasional. The kingdom is described as righteousness and peace and joy in the Holy Ghost, not in the absence of critics, not in the success of arguments, not in the tidy completion of yesterday's narrative. Joy is what leaks from a life that has ceased keeping accounts. Now the deception is polite, pious, and often applauded. Resentment puts on the robe of discernment and says, I am simply seeing clearly. It adjusts its spectacles and adds, it's only my memory. I'm keeping myself safe, but look closely at what is being remembered. Is it truth or is it attachment to a personal history you've come to believe is you? Who told you that spirit requires a scrapbook of injuries to be wise? Who insisted that the Christ within must consult a museum of offenses before he blesses? You know the answer. It is the human proprietor of me and mine curating exhibits to justify its vigilance. And while the gallery gains new wings every year, the face loses its light. The joy of the Lord is your strength, Scripture declares. When you trade joy for justification, you trade strength for stiffness. Stiffness can hold a pose. It cannot lift a burden. I am not asking you to perform a smile. Heaven help us from learned grins. I am pressing you to release the identity that clenches the features in the first place. Joy is not pasted on. It rises uncoached the moment there is nothing left to guard. When the accountant of grievances is dismissed, the cheeks unlearn severity. The eyes become hospitable again. Even the silence around you sounds different because it is no longer an audit but a sanctuary. Ask, and ye shall receive, that your joy may be full, says the red letter. Receive what? Not primarily things. Receive the awareness of God as your very life, where no private self is on trial and no ledger is kept. That awareness cannot help but smile, sometimes with lips, always with presence. And here is the bridge we cannot ignore. When joy drains, prayer strains. A clenched identity cannot host communion. It can only manage negotiation. Try to pray from a scowl and feel the wires cross. The signal is jammed with the static of a self insisting on its case. Try to bless with a jaw set for battle and notice how little goes out and how little comes back. But let joy unhired, unbribed return, and you will discover that prayer finds you before you form a thought. It runs like clear water through a channel no longer packed with old debris. So take the diagnosis not as insult, but as invitation. If the invoice is on the face, cancel the account that issued it. Refuse to curate the museum. Stand outwardly cold-blooded to the provocations of the day, inwardly overheated with love for God and man, and watch the features grow, transparent to a life that is not yours to protect. Joy will not be manufactured, it will be revealed. And once revealed, It will carry you forward to the next line in our audit, where we will see why, deprived of joy, even our prayers begin to sound like bargains instead of songs. Rejoice evermore, the apostle wrote, not as cheerleading, but as identity. When you are no longer the offended proprietor, you are the rejoicer by nature. The face will tell the truth of that long before the words do. And now, since the face has already testified, let us put the ear on the stand. Listen to the way prayer sounds when resentment is paying the bill. It is not Father, it is Counselor. It is not Thy will be done. It is, here are my terms. We kneel, piously sometimes, and we begin, God, fix them. God, prove me right. God, show them. God, vindicate me. Protect my version. Underwrite my schedule. Apply pressure where I can't. Be honest. Is that prayer or is that a memorandum? Is it communion or a contract? When thou prayest, said the Master, enter into thy closet. And we have been entering the boardroom with charts. Socratic questions help like cold water on a hot forehead, so take them. Are you praying from the Christ or from the offended self? Are you seeking God or seeking a verdict? Do you want truth or do you want ammunition? Who is speaking the life that needs nothing or the mask that cannot breathe without being right? After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Jesus said, and the first clause breaks the spell, if we mean it. Our Father. Not my private deity, not my tribal magician, not the patron of my grievance, our. If the pronoun is true, can I keep a private prosecution going? If he is our Father, I must either drop the case or accuse my own brethren before his face. Here is the strange simplicity we keep missing. The moment you release the personal claim, prayer returns to its native element, which is not speech first but listening, not heat first but warmth, not pleading first but presence. Thy kingdom come, not my little kingdom, not my tidy resolution, thy. And what happens? The atmosphere changes. The negotiation table dissolves, and you find yourself in a room without furniture, a quiet without edges. Sometimes there are words, sometimes only a radiance that doesn't need vocabulary. My sheep hear my voice, said the Christ. They do not hear it over the gavel. They hear it when the court adjourns. Confession, I have taken prayers into the presence like invoices into a bank, and heaven, in its mercy, stamped them insufficient funds. Not because God was stingy, but because the account I was drawing on did not exist in him. A personal, self-demanding, cosmic endorsement. And then, by grace, not by virtue, I have watched the same tongue say only, Father. And stop there. The warmth arrived. The breath lengthened. A guidance as soft as a hand on the shoulder found me. No arguments, no strategies, just the knowing of what not to do and what to do. Be still and know that I am God. Be still long enough and you will find knowing where there was only insisting. Let's twist that Bible upside down in the way that puts it right side up in our practice. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Do you hear the arithmetic? Forgiveness is not an afterthought of prayer. It is the condition of prayer. As you release your debtor, you release your mouth from bargaining and open your inner ear to communion. If ye forgive not men, neither will your Father forgive not, because God is a bookkeeper, but because a closed fist cannot receive. The moment the fist opens, the manna falls. And if prayer is blocked, guidance is blocked. Make no mistake. When the closet is a courtroom, there is no still small voice, and choices are made from reaction. We text too fast. We answer with the edge we rehearsed at 2 a.m. We sign contracts with the mood of a moment, and relationships start paying with us, emotion for emotion, bargain for bargain, a marketplace where love used to be free. We will look at that ledger in a moment. For now, close the case. Enter the closet without the brief. Stand outwardly cold-blooded to every provocation, inwardly overheated with love for God and man, and whisper the red letters until they become your breath, thy will be done. Not as poetry, as practice. Then listen until prayer is no longer something you do to God, but the life of God doing itself in you. Do you see how quickly the marketplace opens once prayer becomes a memorandum? We walk out of the closet and start pricing one another. Warmth becomes currency. Silence becomes a penalty. We begin to trade. I'll soften if you admit. I'll lean in if you apologize. I'll be generous as soon as you show suitable remorse. That is not love. That is emotional interchange. And it drains like a leaky cistern because it is fueled by a private self collecting interest. Do you think the God self needs interest? Do you think the infinite asks for proofs of loyalty before it lets the sun up? He maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, said the Master. Impersonal, universal. No bargaining table, no invoice, no late fees. Resentment has a choreography, and everyone in the room learns the steps whether they want to or not. You withdraw warmth just a degree or two at first, and the house notices winter. You test loyalty with small provocations. Will they come to me or to them? You recruit allies with careful recountings, edited for effect. You keep score with the neatness of an accountant. I called twice, they called once. I yielded here, they yielded never. I have suffered long, therefore I deserve. And while this arithmetic is being kept, the children, the co-workers, the congregation feel the chill and do not know why they are shivering. Do you think the God self shivers? Do you think spirit needs a chorus of witnesses to feel secure? Only humanhood requires allies to prop its verdict. The God self has nothing to defend and therefore nothing to trade. Now hear a hard saying that is actually a mercy. Love, if it is to be inexhaustible, must be impersonal. Our teacher's word for it is insulation, no emotional interchange, not because we are indifferent, but because we love from the Christ and not from the adrenal gland. Outwardly cold-blooded and inwardly overheated with love for God and man, that is the paradox to the bargaining self. Impersonal love appears chilly because it will not haggle. It will not purchase access with flattery. It will not withhold the light to manipulate the plant, but step inside its interior and you will feel a furnace that never goes out. Freely ye have received, freely give. Free means without a price list. I have made the mistake you are tempted to keep. I have sat at tables with those I cherish and waited for tiny interest payments, tone of voice, timing, posture, before releasing the warmth that was mine to give for free. I have converted a marriage, a friendship, a fellowship into an exchange of temperature readings. Then I wondered why we all needed more sleep and less coffee. If ye love them which love you, what reward have ye, says the Christ. The question is not a scold. It is an explanation. Emotional interchange cannot reward you with the life of God because it is measured, and good measure, pressed down and shaken together, only arrives where the measure is not of man. How then does impersonal love move among us? It does not bargain, it blesses. It does not hoard, it pours. It answers a text without first consulting yesterday's tally. It takes a phone call as a fresh street, not a rerun of an old alley. It says yes or no cleanly. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay, and neither yes nor no contains the poison of a remembered slight. It visits the sick without rehearsing how the sick once failed to visit it. It serves, and because it draws from the God self, it is not depleted by giving. The river does not measure its own gallons before it crosses the field. But, you say, won't they take advantage? Who are they? And where did you get the power to predict their soul's curriculum? Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you, the Master taught. And then he tied the bow, that ye may be the children of your Father. Children resemble their parent. The parent does not keep score against the sunflowers to decide which one gets light. Impersonal love ends the bargaining without ending the care. In fact, only when the bargaining ends can care become care, not commerce. Watch what resentment does if left unchallenged. It builds a caucus. Family members become delegates. Co-workers become blocs. Churches become silent parliaments with hallway votes. We huddle in corners and trade whispers heat without light, and soon every gesture is read as a referendum, every absence as a policy. No one can breathe in that air. It is all exchange and no spirit. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Liberty from what? From the price list, from the ledger, from the uneasy commerce of warm for warm. So take the practice home. Release the requisitions you file against each face. Return each one in consciousness to the hour of our Father. Refuse emotional interchange, not because you are too noble to feel, but because you are too devoted to God to buy and sell in his temple. Stand outwardly cold-blooded to the pulls of flattery and offense, inwardly overheated with one intention, to let the life that owns you shine without hindrance through whatever meeting, meal, or moment is at hand. And know this, when relationships are taxed, the circle tightens. The grievance that began with one person trains your eyes to see through that lens everywhere until your world shrinks to the size of your story. That is the next line in the ledger, and it is a cost no child of God needs to keep paying. And here it is. The line in the ledger you hope was misprinted, the story you keep becomes the room you live in. The circumference of your world draws in, not because the city is smaller or the congregation thinner, but because fewer friendships feel safe, fewer rooms feel welcoming, fewer conversations feel neutral. Everything now is a referendum. A casual greeting becomes a coded message. A change of subject is treason. The hallway you used to cross whistling is now a minefield, but notice no one laid the mine. You brought them and you set them at precise intervals. Every 5 steps a memory, every 10 a verdict. Do you think the God self carries landmines in a pocket and sows them where it may have to walk? Do you think spirit narrows corridors to avoid meeting a face it made? Only humanhood does this. Only the private proprietor of me and mine builds a smaller house each season and then complains of the rent. Resentment is an architect, and it loves tiny rooms. First you stop attending one gathering for now, then another until things settle, then a whole section of the town map is painted in caution stripes. You once liked to read widely, now you skim for confirmation. You once welcomed new names to the table, now you arrange chairs by loyalty. The air thins, but you call it prudence. The windows cloud, but you call it maturity. Is it? Or is it the gentle claustrophobia of the offended self trying to make the universe small enough to manage? Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, said the Master. Ask yourself plainly, has your truth made you free? Or has your version made you careful? Now the prism. We do not need iron for this. The cell is built of sentences, and the bars are the vertical strokes in always, never, they, mine. Outwardly, you are at liberty, you drive, you vote, you sit on the aisle if you like, but inwardly, you trace the same 4 paces and stop at the same wall. You converse, but only through the slot in the door. You give, but only with a chain attached to the coin. The God makes his rounds, and his name is narrative. He taps the bars each hour with a nightstick stamped with your memories, and you rise whether it is day or night. He hath sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives, the Christ declared in the synagogue. Who is captive here? The one you resent, who has long since gone to breakfast, or the one who cannot release, who eats at a table set inside his own story. Be honest, and mercy will come quickly. Whosoever committeth sin is the servant of sin, says Scripture. Invert our theme, and you will hear it. Whosoever rehearses resentment becomes the servant of resentment. And if the Son therefore shall make you free, ye shall be free indeed. The Son does not free you by ordering the other. He frees you by dissolving the owner of the story. I will confess it was learning, not theory, that taught me this. I have entered rooms and felt them grow small, not because the walls moved, but because I carried a grievance folded in my pocket like a decree. I scanned faces, not for Christ, but for corroboration. And what did I find? What every collector finds: more debtors. The world became a filing system with legs. I was lonely in crowds, tense in quiet, and hospitable only to those who paid on time. Then one red letter found me, not a new one, an old friend I had stopped hearing. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down and shaken together. The measure was mine, and it was getting smaller by the day. Who then is in bondage? Not the offender who lives rent-free in our heads, but the landlord who is impoverished. Not the one who goes on unconsulted, but the one who consults the grievance before opening the door, who is silenced. Not the absent face, but the Christ voice inside, muffled by the velvet curtains of a private theater that plays the same reel night after night. Let the questions do their work. They are not an indictment, but a key turning. And now, because God deals in exits, not just audits, hear the pivot. If resentment is the unseen tax of humanhood, the magistrate you keep paying is the personal self. The only way out, I die daily, said the apostle. He did not mean poetry. He meant practice. Die daily to the proprietor of the story. Refuse to feed it with fresh evidence. Step out of the body tomb of tight identity and use it again as an instrument of God. The world will not have changed when you do. It will have widened. Doors you closed will be doors again, not verdicts. Rooms will host spirit instead of strategies. And the story, bless it and bury it, will return to its right size, a page in a life owned by God, not a prison where God is asked to visit. In a moment we will take up that dying, not with drama, but with the gentle firmness of those who have paid enough tax and are ready for liberty. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Bring your spirit there, and the cell cannot remain. So when I say, I die daily, do not hear poetry, hear procedure, do not hear self-hatred, hear the surrender of a false landlord. The death in view is not the ending of your life, your humor, your tongue, or your dignity. It is the ending of the private center that insists on being right, seen, and repaid, the center that turns every hallway into a referendum and every pillow into a bench. If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily. Daily means the day you have in your hand, not the one you will reform for God next month. Where is this cross? It is not in a monastery you cannot reach. It is in the next slight you feel. The instant the tone cuts, the email delays, the seat is taken without a glance, there is your altar. Watch the reflex. The breath shortens, the ledger opens, the story reaches for ink. Admit it. No one had to teach you this. Humanhood is fluent. Now, in that very instant, before a single mental sentence completes itself, make the pivot. Pause long enough for 2 honest breaths. Name it without ceremony. Humanhood is speaking. The proprietor is alive and preparing invoices. And now, not as concept, but as consent, return. Father, thou art the only selfhood here. Not I defending against a thou, but God revealing himself to himself. I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. Let the sentence be more than a verse. Let it be the key that turns the engine from private heat to divine current. Do you think you die by suppressing words and chewing your cheek? No, you die by relinquishing the claimant. You drop the need to be seen, and suddenly there is nothing to hide and nothing to sell. You uncurl the fist of being right, and there is space for wisdom to enter, wisdom that was waiting but could not come to a courtroom. Resist not evil, said the Master. Twist that in your mind until it stands correctly. Do not brace your humanhood against humanhood, for you will multiply it. Agree with thine adversary quickly, quickly. Not because wrong is right, but because life will not argue with shadows and you are not appointed to give them substance. The adversary you agree with first is the one wearing your name tag, making a case. Agree with him that he is not your life, and he will disappear. Then bless the other face without penalty clauses. I know the hesitation. But if I die there, who will protect me? Who protected the Master when no man stood up for him? Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. He did not outsource his safety to the mob or to memory. He rested his being in God, and in so doing revealed a safety no sword can figure and no insult can displace. Dying daily does not make you a doormat. It makes you a doorway. The life that cannot be offended moves through you as decision, as no, as yes, as silence, as speech, but never as bargaining, never as stored heat, never as the pale triumph of having scored a point against a brother. Make it concrete. The call comes from the one who owes you an apology. The heat rises. Here is the altar. Pause. Inwardly step out of the body and out of the story, just a finger width, but out. Our Father. Not my cause, their fault, our. Feel the pronoun work on you like medicine. Then listen until you can answer cleanly. Sometimes you will speak correction without edge. Sometimes you will serve without mention of the ledger. Sometimes you will decline without bitterness. In each case, the proof is the same. When the personal claimant dies, peace, that earlier emigrant, walks back in and sits down. This is not theory. Practice it 10 times in a day. In small places at the sink, in a parking lot, in a thread of text, and you will discover what could not be argued to you. Freedom begins exactly at the moment you stop feeding the offended self, not when the other changes, not when the church votes your way. Today, not someday. Now is the accepted time. Every now contains a little funeral for a false owner and a little resurrection for the life that never needed defending. And this will lead us where we must go next. The old instinct to settle scores was our schooling under Moses, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, and it has taxed us long enough. The Christ does not soften morality. He ends the interest payments on humanhood by teaching forgiveness, that is 70 times 7, retaliation turned upside down until it cannot find its feet. But we are ahead of ourselves. For this hour, take the cross at the exact place it appears, and die not to your God-given radiance, but to the petty magistrate who keeps you paying outwardly cold-blooded to provocation, inwardly overheated with love for God and man. Walk on. You will find that the road widens as you go, and the world you thought had shrunk was only the room your story built. When the storyteller resigns, the kingdom is spacious. Let us be honest about our schooling. We were raised, some of us in pews and some of us in traffic, on a moral arithmetic. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth, mood for mood. It feels like justice because it is tidy. It feels like safety because it is familiar. But look at the ledger we have kept under Moses' tutelage. Every score settled costs us 2 new entries, one for what was done to us, one for what resentment is doing through us. Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, the Master announced, and then he turned the whole classroom around. But I say unto you, that ye resist not evil. Don't brace your humanhood against humanhood. You will only get more of it. Forgive 70 times 7. This is not moral softness. It is spiritual physics. It is the only way to stop paying interest on humanhood. Let's twist that Bible upside down until it lands right side up in practice. You do not need a concordance to win arguments. You need the red letters to win your freedom. Carry them, if you like, in a pocket, in a phone, where your hand can find them before your reflex does. Not to quote at your neighbor like a gavel, but to let the master's tone recondition the climate inside you. Read until the pronouns become your breath. Our Father. Read until retaliation sounds foreign in your own ears. Read until Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, is not a verse you admire, but a room you live in when the sting arrives. Forgive is a word we have cheapened by sentiment and hardened by suspicion. Hear it again in our living tongue. I will not hold you in condemnation in my consciousness. I will not enthrone your deed as my king. I may speak truth to you. I may set a boundary. I may call a policeman if law requires it. I may say no with a steady voice. But I will not bind you to your worst moment inside my own temple, nor will I bind myself as your jailer. Judge not, that ye be not judged. If I become your judge in my heart, I inherit your sentence in my nerves. If I release you to God, I release myself to God. With what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. Forgiveness is the only measure that does not come back as tax. Do you think the God self of us requires vengeance to feel complete? Do you imagine spirit needs your enemy's apology to restore your oxygen? Or is it the personal proprietor, wounded, righteous, tireless with proofs, that needs those payments? Be stern with yourself, because mercy hides inside the sternness. Every time you collect, you pay. Every time you bless, you are paid by life itself. Be therefore merciful, as your Father also is merciful. That is not an ethic only. It is a doorway into a different economy. Confession helps. I have used Scripture like a subpoena, marching into prayer to demand that heaven back my case. I have quoted red letters with a blue heart, and then, by grace, I have read the same letters as a patient reads a prescription, slowly, personally, repeatedly, until the medicine altered the blood. I stopped asking what to say to them and began asking what to stop saying inside. A strange liberty arrived. I could answer yes or no without heat. I could move toward or away without narrative. The wound did not become right, but it also did not become my ruler. But what they did was real. Of course it was. We will not hide in clouds to avoid the earth. The blow landed, the money vanished, the trust was bent. We will look at that in a moment, and we will learn the clean difference between discernment and condemnation. For now, see this. The event is a fact. Bondage is a choice. The cross was a fact. Father, forgive them was freedom, speaking from within the fact. Christ's forgiveness is not weakness wincing. It is strength, refusing to lend reality to evil by hosting it in consciousness. Outwardly you may appear cold-blooded. To the old instinct you will not strike back. Inwardly you will be overheated with love for God and man. You will not keep account. So take the practice. Like bread for the road, saturate in the red letters until retaliation cannot find a home address in you. Say aloud, if you must, in plain words you can believe, Father, I release them from my sentence. Release me from my bench. Guide my tongue, guard my boundary, but keep my heart unarmed. Then watch the interest charges fall away. You will still have days to walk through and wrongs to meet wisely, but the tax is ended. And when the old protest rises, but it happened, meet me in the next breath, we will separate the happening from the habit of bondage, and we will leave both where they belong, the first to God's governance, the second to the grave of the personal self. But it happened. Yes, facts are stubborn things, but worship is voluntary. We do not varnish the blow to make a sermon shine. We refuse only to place the blow on a throne. There is a difference between looking and bowing. There is a difference between naming a deed and naming a person as his worst deed forever. Ye shall know them by their fruits, said the Master. This is discernment. Judge not, that ye be not judged. This is the refusal to enthrone the deed as identity in them or in yourself. Let me press you as a friend. Can you see clearly while you are burning? Can you bless while you are demanding repayment? Can you set a clean boundary with a fist around your heart? Or does the heat fog your lens, tighten your breath, and convert wisdom into strategy? Be stern with no one but your own reflex. Mercy lives inside that sternness. Discernment asks, what is the fruit before me, and what is mine to do? Condemnation declares, I know what they are, and I will keep the file forever. One protects the house, the other builds a prison in the basement and keeps the keys under your pillow. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Hear the paradox as instruction in insulation. Wise enough to see what happened, harmless enough not to become it. Insulated love does not mean a glassy stare and a numb hand. It means no emotional interchange, outwardly cold-blooded to the pull of revenge and debt-collecting, inwardly overheated with love for God and man. You may say yes or no. You may change a lock. You may call a guard. You may resign a post without smuggling hatred into your bloodstream. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay, and neither syllable needs the hiss of a memory. Case it out simply, because spirituality that cannot walk down a hallway is only poetry. Family. A brother borrows and does not return. It happened. Discernment says, I will not fund you again without a plan and a date. I may not fund you at all. Condemnation says, you are a thief and will always be a thief, and I will rehearse your name with that title in every room I enter. Which voice do you want in your chest for the next 10 years? Practice insulation here. Return the account to God. Make your no a clean no, and bless him to find his provision from the one, not from you as a leaky Savior. If a verse helps you breathe, let it be this. Give to him that asketh thee does not command you to become a dispenser of chaos. It commands you to become a non-resentful instrument of God's order. Sometimes order says no. Church, a leader misrepresents you from the pulpit and the air goes cold. It happened. Discernment answers with Matthew's quiet wisdom. If thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone, not a caucus in the parking lot, not a chain of texts to recruit sympathy, a meeting clean, brief, without heat. If he hears, you gain your brother. If not, there is a further process. But none of it licenses a private theater in which you play judge in a robe sewn from Scripture. Insulation here is refusing the hallway trial while keeping your spine. You will appear cold-blooded to gossip's appetite because you will not feed it. Inwardly, you will be overheated with a single aim, to keep the temple free of barter. Workplace. A manager takes credit for your labor. It happened. Discernment documents. Speaks with clarity. Involves right channels. Condemnation studies every face at every meeting, building a case that poisons coffee and corrodes sleep. Hear the Master again. Pray for them which despitefully use you. Pray not as a sentimental exercise, but to evacuate your bloodstream of the toxin that will otherwise dictate your tone and dull your eyes. Then act. If the system will not correct, you may change fields or firms, not as flight, but as freedom. The sign that you moved in God is simple. The new door opens without the old story stapled to it. Do you think the God self of us needs your fury to maintain order? Do you imagine infinite life is helped by your private gall? Only humanhood mistakes heat for light. Only the proprietor thinks the universe will tilt if he does not lean on it. Let us die daily to the bench, not to the seeing. Let us keep the eye that notes fruit and the heart that refuses labels. You can recognize wrongdoing without enthroning it in your consciousness as a permanent claim. Do that, and you will find that boundaries become simple, speech becomes clean, and sleep returns to the spared. In a moment, we will lay out the table where this hidden tax usually presents its bill, family, church, work, and we will perform the inner audit that dissolves the collector at the door. For now, take this as your pocket practice. See it, name it, set the boundary, release the person to God, refuse the theater, and walk on, outwardly cold-blooded to provocation, inwardly overheated with the love that keeps no accounts. Let us set the cases on the table where they usually arrive with a thud, an envelope stamped, urgent, past due, and very reasonable. Family first, because the oldest invoices are filed there and the ink never seems to fade. They never saw me. Can you hear it in your bones? The ancient script. You were the quiet one, the overlooked one, the dutiful one, or you were the blazing one, the misunderstood one, the one disciplined for a fire that did not come with instruction. Decades pass, and the child at the window still keeps books, adding interest every holiday. Do you think the God self of you requires a late fee from 1,987 to feel whole today? Or is it the proprietor of humanhood, hurt, honest, scorekeeping, that is funding its own project? When I was a child, I spake as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. Hear the apostle not scolding you, but handing you a key. Putting away childish things is not denying your history. It is ending the account that demands a retroactive childhood from mortals who could not give it. Honor thy father and mother. How? Honor the God that parented you through imperfect people. Honor the God-child in you by ceasing to bill others for what only God can supply. You may set boundaries. You may say no to fresh chaos, but end the museum tour where you point at exhibits of old neglect and sell tickets to your current friends. Forgive 70 times 7. Forgive not as sentiment, but as the closing of a ledger whose owner has died. You die daily to the child who keeps the window vigil, and you will meet your family as they are, not as a jury for who they were. Now the church, the spiritual circle, where love's name is on the bulletin but offense wears a robe, marked principle. How pious bitterness is when it quotes a verse. How respectable resentment becomes when it is discernment that just happens to divide the room and bleach the faces of joy. By their fruits ye shall know them. What is the fruit of your principled indignation, clarity, and quiet strength, or a fellowship of watchful eyes and tight throats? By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another. Not the love of emotional interchange that exhausts itself by noon, but the impersonal love that neither flatters nor punishes. Beware the prayer request that is rumor with a halo. Beware the committee for truth that meets mainly to collect evidence. The Master gave us a clean hallway. If thy brother, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. Alone, not as a performance. If he hears, you have gained your brother. If not, there is a path. But none of it grants you a bench to preside over souls. I confess I have hymned God with a jaw so tight it could crack a wafer, and then wondered why the benediction did not land. Where resentment sits in the pew, joy stands at the door. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. If liberty has left the sanctuary, ask who has been keeping accounts in God's house. Work where resentments wear suits and carry calendars. Here the bill is a status wound. The title did not appear beside your name. The email praising your labor was addressed to someone else. The project you birthed was presented by a midwife with a microphone. You do not want revenge, you tell yourself. You want recognition, do you? Or do you want a visible token that your life counts in a room of mortals? Seek not the honor that cometh from men. Let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. Whatsoever ye do, do it heartily as to the Lord, and not unto men. These are not slogans to console the overlooked. They are doors out of payroll, slavery to human approval. Beware, too, the secret delight when the exalted stumble. Oh, how quickly the inner prosecutor smiles and then bows his head as if in prayer. Rejoice with them that do rejoice. Can you? Or has the need to be seen turned you into a weather vane fixed to another's fortunes? Promotion cometh neither from the east nor the west. In spirit there is no promotion, only unfolding usefulness. The God self does not apply for recognition. It expresses itself and leaves the counting to God. Here is the line that runs under family, church, and work alike. Resentment changes costumes across our roles, but it collects the same payment, your inner freedom. And here is the deeper theft beginning to show itself. Service stops, not the busy work of motion, but service, the overflow that blesses because the cup is full. My cup runneth over. Resentment is the slow finger that presses the rim down until nothing spills. Freely ye have received, freely give. Try giving freely while nursing a case. You will charge invisible fees with every act. He that believeth on me, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. Rivers do not run through ledges. The moment you keep accounts, the stream becomes a canal with a gate, and you are the gatekeeper, self-appointed, weary, important, and dry. We will speak in a breath about the final tax, how resentment steals your capacity to bless and calls it self-protection. For now, see how simple the arithmetic is. Family debt, church principle, workplace recognition, different ink, same collector, identical cost, die daily to the proprietor and the bills stop arriving. Outwardly cold-blooded to provocation, inwardly overheated with the love that has no invoice, you will find that service resumes of itself the instant the accounts are closed. Here is the final tax, and it is not printed in numbers, it is printed in silence where rivers should be. Resentment does not merely chill your mood. It freezes the spring of blessing at its source and then calls the ice wisdom. Blessing is not a mood and not a phrase you attach to a signature. Blessing is a spiritual function. It is the capacity to behold God where humanhood points and whispers. Enemy. To sense the Christ where memory insists debtor. To stand before a rival and inwardly say with clean eyes, I know thy presence here. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them which despitefully use you. Why? Because that is what goodness does when it is not busy protecting a private treasury. Because only blessing keeps you in the atmosphere where God can be heard. Self-protection is a clever tailor. It cuts you a coat of armor and says, you'll be warm now. But have you noticed that coat does not breathe? Guardedness is not insulation, it is suffocation. When the heart becomes a vault, nothing unlawful gets in true, but nothing lawful gets out. Not prayer, not peace, not healing. You pound on the door from the inside, quoting verses to yourself like a locksmith, and still the latch will not lift because the proprietor refuses to vacate the premises. Do you think the God self of us protects its life by withholdings? Do you imagine spirit hoards compassion in a panic room? Or is it only humanhood timid, bruised, intensely reasonable that mistakes the closing of channels for safety? Here the paradox is a kind friend. The moment you no longer require repayment, a new authority appears in your speech. Clarity without edge, compassion without leakage, firmness without hatred. You can say no with a voice that blesses. You can draw a boundary that does not bruise your own ribs. You are no longer negotiating from a wound. You are officiating from presence. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Give what? Not marbles and applause. Give release where the world demands a lien. Give blessing where the ledger wants interest. The surprise is not that others change. The surprise is that you do. Your face unknots, the air in your chest returns. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Purity is not naivete. It is a heart unarmed, therefore clear. I confess I have practiced a pious withholding and named it prudence. I have walked into a sick room with a guarded smile, thinking I was being professional, and watched the atmosphere thicken because blessing cannot flow through a man balancing a case. Then, once in a while, by grace, I have left the judge on the curb and entered only as a window. The breath changed, the color returned, the room remembered God. No technique, just no accounts. Be therefore merciful, as your Father also is merciful. Mercy is not a soft glove that pats offenders. It is the open conduit through which life can act without consulting our files. Make this real today, not someday. Simple practice. Practice simply. First, the pause. When the heat rises or the memory taps, stop for 2 honest breaths. Name it. Humanhood is opening the vault. Second, the turning. Our Father, say it slowly until the plural drowns the private case. Third, the beholding. Father, I behold thy presence right here in this one. I will not enthrone their deed in my temple. Fourth, the release. I let go my sentence and my bench. Show me the boundary that blesses. Fifth, the act. Speak yea or nay, cleanly, briefly, without proof texts or poison. Then walk on. If the case returns at noon, repeat the audit. If it returns at night, place it on the altar once more and sleep unarmed. Let not your heart be troubled, not by pretending the world is kinder than it is, but by refusing to give resentment the keys to your sanctuary. This is the last bill resentment presents. It steals your God-given capacity to bless and tells you you are finally safe. Do not believe the usher that seats you away from the river. Die daily to the treasurer in you who loves his vault, and the floodgates will swing on their own hinges. Outwardly, you may look cold-blooded to the world's provocations. You will not argue. You will not keep accounts. Inwardly, you will be overheated with love for God and man, and your very presence will begin to do its quiet work again. Freely ye have received, freely give. When the giving is blessing, the receiving is life itself. And that is the end of the tax. Let us make it plain and workable, because poetry will not pay this bill. Forgiveness becomes stable when it is practiced as an inner audit and a release, not as a one-time surge of sentiment. Morning and night and at the hour of heat, sit in the quiet like a steward of God's house and ask 3 questions with a steady voice. Where is my peace missing? Who am I holding in condemnation? What scene am I replaying? Do not negotiate with the answers. Hold them up as you would a candle to a map. If peace has leaked, you have been taxed. If a name is trapped under your rib, you have appointed yourself jailer. If a scene is looping, you have put a projector in your sanctuary. Create in me a clean heart, O God, not by denying what happened, but by refusing to build a throne for it. Now the release, simple and surgical. This is humanhood. It is not my true selfhood. Say it without embroidery. This heat, this tightening, this courtroom speech rehearsed in the shower, humanhood, not God. I die daily. Who dies? The proprietor, the offended self, the collector of small debts. Resign the office. Father, I let go my claim. I step down from the bench. I return this person and this memory to thee. Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. Not later now. You will feel the first deduction reverse. A breath you did not know was missing returns. The shoulders discover that they are not the world's hinges. Do you think the God self of us needs a human verdict to keep order? Or is it only the personal self that needs to win a case to feel alive? Lay it down and watch how quickly life resumes its own government without your gavel. Then the replacement, because a vacuum, invites old tenants. Return to red-letter consciousness like a thirsty man to water. Our Father. Say it slowly until the plural drowns the private courtroom. Resist not evil. Let the words rub the reflex backward until it quiets. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Sit with that sentence as if you were learning to breathe by it. Let it circulate until it becomes your climate. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Be still long enough for the gift to be opened. Do not add your signature to it as if you purchased it. This is not quotation as weapon. This is remembrance as oxygen. Let the mind be in you which was also in Christ Jesus, not a mind that bargains, but a mind that beholds and yields now outward fruit, because spirit does not make statues, it makes steps. From peace, speak if speech is needed. From peace, correct what must be corrected. From peace, set a boundary clear as noon. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay, yea without bribery, nay without sting. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Document if you must, resign if you must, reconcile if grace opens the door, but do not carry a ledger under your coat. The sign that the practice has taken root is this: action becomes clean and brief. There is no aftertaste. The night grants you its sleep. Do not stop with your tribe. The practice is not complete until the circle widens. He maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good. Be ye therefore perfect, which is to say, impartial, as your Father is impartial. Let our drown mine until even the one who wronged you is included in the weather of your blessing. This is insulation, not indifference, outwardly cold-blooded to provocation, inwardly overheated with love for God and man. Keep the audit, perform the release, live in the replacement, let the fruit show itself without fuss. Do this today and tomorrow and the next, and you will wake one morning inside a life that no longer keeps accounts, only a river moving where ledgers once were. Freely ye have received, freely give, and the giving will be your peace made visible. Add it up once, cleanly, and let the ledger go. Resentment is the unseen tax that drains peace first, then turns sleep into a courtroom where you argue both sides, then bleaches joy from the face until the mirror stops telling the truth, then converts prayer into a negotiation instead of communion, then reduces relationships to emotional interchange and bargaining, and finally steals your very capacity to bless while calling the theft self-protection. That is the whole bill. And now the mercy. It is paid the moment the proprietor dies today, not someday. Here is the paradox of the life that emerges. You will look calmer, almost cold, some will say, because you are no longer exchanging wounds in the marketplace of moods. You have ended emotional barter, but inwardly the furnace is lit and steady, overheated with universal love for God and man, outwardly cold-blooded to provocation, inwardly burning with a heat that neither scorches nor sputters. You will not rail, you will not rehearse, you will not keep accounts, yet your presence will begin to radiate a climate in which life can mend itself. My peace I give unto you, not a peace you purchase by winning your case, but a peace that is gift, that holds when the wind rises, that frees your yes to be yes and your no to be no without an aftertaste. Let me put the final question where it belongs, right at the door where you step out. What can the world take from you if you stop insisting on the personal self that can be taken from? If you retire from the bench, who can summon you to sit? If you cease keeping accounts, what collector can knock? The prince of this world cometh, and hath nothing in me. Can you hear that as a promise dressed as a possibility? If there is no private treasury to defend, no grudges in the vault, then the winds of opinion, the fortunes of officers, the moods of kinsmen pass over you like weather noticed, respected, but not enthroned. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, not only coins and ribbons, but verdicts, debts owed, stories that prove you right. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. If your treasure is the God's self freely giving, your heart will live where thieves cannot break through and steal, not your house, but your peace. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. The kingdom does not come with back pay, it comes with present life. It arrives the instant you can say without embroidery, I die daily to the offended one and I live to God. So here is the benediction that is practice wearing a blessing. Live outside the body as its gentle steward. Do not crawl into it as a tomb. Handle money like a handful of marbles God lets you play with. Do not stack it like proof that you are safe. Carry the red letters where your hand can find them quicker than your reflex. Not for quotation as weapon, but for remembrance as oxygen. Keep the quiet audit, perform the release, speak the clean word, and walk on. Lo, I am with you always in the meeting, in the kitchen, in the midnight when an old scene knocks for lodging. If you are tempted to reopen the accounts, hear the Master early. Take no thought. If you must take a thought, let it be our Father until the pronoun does its work. When the personal self stops keeping accounts, the unseen tax ends, and spiritual life resumes as peace, joy, and power to bless, not in a burst, but as a river returning to its banks. You will sleep again. You will laugh again, not at anyone, but from the inside out. Prayer will become communion without a bargaining chip on the table. Relationships will ripen into impersonal love that never withholds care and never trades in pity. And blessing, quiet, practical, unforced, will flow again as naturally as breath. Go in that peace. Keep no accounts. Let the offended one die daily, and live, really live, from the God self that cannot be taxed. Freely ye have received, freely give, and the giving will be your life. Amen.